Continuation with my read aloud series from Indian Economic Development textbook for class 11. Of course, it's now class 12. Here I go to the 7th chapter. I'm doing unit 3, that is current challenges facing Indian economy, and in that I've come to chapter 7, that is employment, growth, informalization and other issues. So this is it, chapter 7. So I'm going to read the introduction. People do a variety of work. Some work on farms, in factories, banks, shops, and many other workplaces. Yet, a few others work at home. Work at home includes not only traditional work like weaving, lace making, or variety of handicrafts, but also modern jobs like programming work in the IT industry. Early factory work meant working in factories located in cities, whereas now technology has enabled people to produce those factory-based goods at home in villages. Why do people work? Work plays an important role in our lives as individuals and as members of society. People work for earning a living. Some people get or have money by inheriting, not working for it. This does not completely satisfy anybody. Being employed in work gives us a sense of self-worth and enables us to realize. It enables us to relate ourselves meaningfully with others. Every working person is actively contributing in national income and hence the development of the country. By engaging in various economic activities, that is the real meaning of earning a living. We do not work only for ourselves. We also have a sense of accomplishment when we work to meet the requirements of those who are dependent on us. Having recognized the importance of work, Mahatma Gandhi insisted upon education and training through a variety of works, including craft. Studying about working people gives us insights into the quality and nature of employment in our country and helps in understanding and planning our human resources. It helps us to analyze the contribution made by different industries and sectors towards national income. It also helps us to address many social issues such as exploitation of marginalized sections of the society, child labor, etc. Workers and employment. What is employment? Who is a worker? When a farmer works on fields, he or she produces food grains and raw materials for industries. Cotton becomes cloth in textile mills and power looms. Lorries transport goods from one place to another. We know that the total money value of all such goods and services produced in a country in a year is called the gross domestic product, GDP, for that year. When we also consider what we pay for our imports and get from our exports, we find that there is a net earning for the country, which may be positive if we have exported more in value terms than imported, or negative if imports exceed exports in value terms, or zero if exports and imports were of the same value. When we add this earning plus or minus from foreign transactions, what we get is called the country's gross national product for that year, GNP. Those activities which contribute in the gross national product are called economic activities. All those who are engaged in economic activities in whatever capacity, high or low, are workers. Even if some of them temporarily abstain from work due to illness, injury or other physical disability, bad weather, festivals, social or religious functions, they are also workers. Workers also include all those who help the main workers in these activities. We generally think of only those who are paid by an employer for their work as workers. This is not so. Those who are self-employed are also workers. The nature of employment in India is multifaceted. Some get employment throughout the year. Some others get employed for only a few months in a year. Many workers do not get fair wages for their work. While estimating the numbers of workers, all those who are engaged in economic activities are included as employed. You might be interested in knowing the number of people actively engaged in various economic activities. During 2004-2005, India had about 460 million strong workforce. Since majority of our people reside in rural areas, the proportion of workforce residing there is higher. The rural workers constitute about 3/4 of this 460 million. Men form the majority of workforce in India. About 70% of the workers are men and the rest are women. Men and women include child laborers in respective sexes. Women workers account for 1/3 of the rural workforce, whereas in urban areas they are just 1/5 of the workforce. Women carry out works like cooking, fetching water and fuel wood, and participate in farm labor. They are not paid wages in cash or in the form of grains. At times they are not paid at all. For this reason, these women are not categorized as workers. Economists have argued that these women should also be called workers. So now we're going to do participation of people in employment. So worker population ratio is an indicator which is used for analyzing the employment situation in the country. This ratio is useful in knowing the proportion of population that is actively contributing to the production of goods and services of a country. If the ratio is higher, it means that the engagement of people is greater. If the ratio of a country is medium or low, it means that a very high proportion of its population is not involved directly in economic activities. You might have already studied in lower classes the meaning of term population. Population is defined as a total number of people who reside in a particular locality at a particular point of time. If you want to know the worker population ratio for India, divide the total number of workers in India by the population in India and multiply it by 100. So that's a formula. So what is it? You divide the total number of workers in India by the population in India and multiply it by 100. You will get the worker population ratio of India. Now if you look at table 7.1, it shows the different levels of participation of people in economic activities. For every 100 persons, about 39, by rounding of 39.2, are workers in India. In urban areas, the proportion is about 35%, whereas in rural India, the ratio is 41. Why is there such a difference? People in rural areas have limited resources to earn a high income and participate more in the employment market. Many do not go to schools, colleges, and other training institutions. Even if some go, they discontinue in the middle to join the workforce. Whereas in urban areas, a considerable section is able to study in various educational institutions. So whereas in urban areas, a considerable section is able to study in various educational institutions. Urban people have a variety of employment opportunities. They look for the appropriate job to suit their qualifications and skills. In rural areas, people cannot stay at home as their economic condition may not allow them to do so. So this is the table that was just talked about. So different levels of participation of people in economic activities for every 100%. So here you round it off, how many? 39% are only employed. So they are the workers in 39% in India. And in urban areas, how much is there? 35%. And in rural areas, it's about 41%. So this is how it is. Okay. And if you see, the men are much more than the women workers. And you see rural is much more than the urban, 40% or say 41% to 35% as opposed to 35% in the urban areas. So, because in rural areas, as we just read, I read out that they have limited resources to earn a high income and participate more in the employment market. And here in the urban areas, they can wait, people can wait, can look for an appropriate job to suit their qualifications. So that is the basic difference. So as we were studying the table, we found out that compared to females, more males are found to be working. The difference in participation rate is very large in urban areas. For every 100 urban females, only about 14 are engaged in the economic activities. In rural areas, for every 100 rural women, about 26 participate in the employment market. Why are women in general and urban women in particular not working? It is common to find that where men are able to earn high incomes, families discourage female members from taking up jobs. Going back to what has already been mentioned above, many activities for the household engaged in by the women are not recognized as productive work. This narrow definition of work leads to non-recognition of women's work and therefore to the underestimation of the number of women workers in the country. Think of the women activity engaged in many activities within the house and at family farms who are not paid for such work, as they certainly contribute to the maintenance of the household and farms. Do you think that their number should be added to the number of women workers? So something for you to think about. Now we come to self-employed and hired workers. We'll do that next.